Oh, Willie, always good to get some time with you. How are you doing today? I know you're
I'm doing
busy.
fantastic. Yeah, I've been really busy. I just caught a big mess of fish, so I'm excited.
I'm literally signing off now, and my family's going out on the lake. So yeah,
Really?
that's my next appointment. So
So I
we're
went
going
this
bass
morning.
fishing.
Yeah, I've got a bucket full of fish that I got to go clean when we're done.
Hopefully that's my agenda later today as
Very
well.
good.
Oh, well, hey, let's talk about this. Let's start with the Life Surge event. I have not been to one of these yet, so I'm just so interested because obviously they've been around for several years. You've been a part of them now for so long. For someone who hasn't gone yet, maybe they're getting ready to go, how do you best explain? Like, is it just, I've seen the promos, and I mean, is it just business owners? I mean, who's the kind of target audience for these?
Yeah, I think it's people who are interested in some way in business and growing, um, their wealth and money and how to be smart about using money. I've been there since the beginning. I was at the first one years ago in Tampa. It was actually while I was filming The Masked Singer. I'll never forget it. Like I was so trying to make sure I learned my songs, and then I had to go speak at some Christian business event. I wasn't even sure what it was, and who would have thought that these many years later I'm still doing them, and really fun, very educational with a mix of spirituality. I mean, there's good spiritual lessons in it as well as just a lot of knowledge. I've learned so much about um, real estate and flipping houses and the market, and they just bring in a lot of smart people who know that stuff with a mix of people that you may have heard of. There's been several of us that have come in and out and spoken. It's just a full day, and you learn a lot, and I think you get encouraged, and yeah, hopefully you sign up, and then they do ongoing classes and coaching and just all this stuff. And I think a lot of people at first it's like, oh, should we be talking about money? But
I was just going to say that sometimes it can be so sensitive,
oh,
such a
for
sensitive
sure.
topic, especially in the Christian faith-based community as
I
well. I
know
mean,
we're so scared of that, and I get that. But as someone who grew up poor like myself, and then obviously I have more now, and if you're not smart with it, you can lose it. You can worry to death about it. You can, it's just there's a lot of things that, and there's a lot of mention of that in the Bible. I remember going, yeah, I was going to the New Testament one time, and I was like, I'm fixing to just totally study this out, and so that and show everyone how there's nothing in there about money. And then I realized it was mentioned a whole lot, and I was like, wow, it is mentioned a lot. And so I think you can learn a lot about yourself and other people when you see how they deal with money. And I just think there's no sense in Christians just being dumb and not properly using that and growing it so that they can do other things, not just for yourself for sure, but so that you can help other people. And I think the smarter we are, it's just I think education is not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
yeah. You mentioned some of the names, Tim Tebow, Priscilla Shire. That's going to be at the Tampa event, but of course there's other ones as well. I'd imagine that's got to be when you get so many people that have such amazing testimonies together. Has that been kind of, pretty inspiring for you as well, just to kind of see what God is doing in these spaces with all these other people as well?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I forgot we were going back to Tampa, which is where the first one was that I was at. Yeah, I remember Corey, my wife, not being sure about it. She was like, "Well, I'm not sure about this." And then once Priscilla Shire signed on, she was like, "Oh, this is of God." And I was like, "Wait a minute, I wasn't enough." And so it took Priscilla. Once Priscilla said it was okay, then it became okay. I have been inspired. Yeah, Tim and I have been doing this pretty much the whole time, and so we speak at a lot of events together. Priscilla's just amazing. She just brings it every time. It's just you can just sit and listen and absorb what God has shown her and how she can communicate that is incredible. Yeah, we've had Sadie out. I've had my parents out. We've had all sorts of people. Yeah, I've met so many. John Maxwell. There's been so many people I wanted to meet, and then I end up getting to sit and listen to them there. Ed Millette's great. Just a lot of speakers. Nick Vujicic. We've been doing these pretty much the whole time. So he and I have been fast friends and brothers in arms, and it's just he's just some great people to learn from. And I think everything I learned about business certainly wasn't my degree. Everything I learned from other people, just hanging around people and listening to people. And that's how I was able to kind of achieve the success was learning from other people, learning from their mistakes, learning what they did right. And I think this is just a great venue for that, where we can share not just all the good stuff, but also where we screwed up, messed up, and did that. And mine's kind of fun. It's an all day event. So I definitely kind of bring the comedy. They mine's the comedy hour when I show up. So
Oh, I love it. Well, this is a good segue to the book now. I'm so excited to talk to you. We've had a chance to talk about this several times, whether it's a movie. I know you and Corey were involved in the stage production in Texas, I believe is where it was. Just of different ways that we can share the gospel, have these gospel conversations. And this book really dives into helping people be confident in that, which I love. And there is a confidence, but everybody thinks they're not good enough to share. Not everybody. I would say a majority of people think
a lot of
they're
people
not
for
good
sure.
enough to share the gospel.
Yeah, Gospeller's the name of it. Looks like gospel with an ER. That's a real word that my wife found when I was writing the book about kind of how to share your faith and how to get started. And kind of the genesis of it was I was teaching a Bible class at church and just about this subject. And so I was able to hear from a lot of people. And there's a lot of things that people disqualify themselves. I don't know the Bible well enough. I don't know where to start. That's where I got a lot of them. Or I've been so bad, I don't know that I can share with anybody else. Or they just kind of believe the lie that you should just keep that to yourself. That's your personal thing, and we don't want to hear about that. And so I just kind of wanted to knock down those walls and kind of made the argument that I think we should all share our faith. It's not just for us; it's for other people. Jesus says, "I came to seek and save what was lost," and so He told us that's why He came. And so for us, I believe to share that. And so, yeah, just tell a bunch of stories about most stories are the ones that work. Some are ones that didn't. And then I go through especially the New Testament, and I just go through those encounters that these new believers had, and what did they say? What was the response? And so we can get a biblical kind of tie into that. And so what I try to do with people is just tie them into the Word, and then let them take it from there. And I'm not judging them, and I'm not, but I do show that I care about them. And I think it starts about caring about people. John chapter 4, when Jesus meets the woman at the well, he just I think just by talking to her, he showed that he cared about her and found out about her story. And then she ends up going and telling her whole village about it. And by the way, that conversation started with Jesus said, "Can I get a drink of water?" So if you can ask for a drink of water, then you can share the gospel with someone. That's how easy it can be.
Well, and I actually heard this on the podcast you did with Sadie, not too, and it was like a light bulb for me. I loved it, and this is how my crazy brain works too. I was just thinking of you. Um, you were talking about how you had heard the story. I think it was a football player. Someone had a heart attack recently, and it was
Mhm.
like the surgeon or whatever who came in later, and once he got to the hospital, obviously got the credit for saving his life, but it was the EMTs, someone, and that's so
Mhm.
true. I think so many of us in drawing that parallel to the church, and that we sometimes just leave it up to the pastors and say, well, that's their
Yeah.
job,
Right.
to share the gospel and really to
Right.
drill down.
That's what we
Um,
pay them to do, right? Yeah, I think we feel like we pay those people to do stuff that we don't want to do. So they almost become like spiritual concierge, where they're supposed to go see the sick and preach the gospel and do all these things. And I think it's on us. And I think, there are a lot of people who can foster into that. People can bring people, but at some point, somebody needs to share with someone the gospel, because oftentimes, even if you go to church, you don't necessarily hear the gospel. You hear a sermon about something, and then and we're hoping we may get them there to the church building, and maybe they'll by osmosis feel it or see it or understand it. And I think the tagline of this is turning darkness to light, one conversation at a time. So it's what kind of conversations can we have? Honestly, most of them outside the church. I don't normally have a conversation while church is going on. So these are conversations that we have at work. These are conversations we have in our homes, with our children, with our family, with people that we know, and sometimes strangers, sometimes even strangers that we come in contact with. And so, yeah, I try to teach about how to listen and things to listen for, and just listen. You'll hear something about, uh, there you go. And I can key in on that. And a story just happened like a couple of weeks ago. I was in the Atlanta airport, and a guy comes up and says, "I know who you are, and I know about your family. Thank you for what you're doing." He goes, I mean, I'm not living exactly how I should live. And I just stopped him. I said, now, why would you say that to me? I mean, you just met me. But that was a clue, right? He was saying, I'm not living. And I said, well, have a seat. Let's talk about what you just said and why you feel that way. We got into his story, heard about how he grew up and the church he went to. And so we had a conversation right there. And so, you just plant those seeds, and I don't know, we keep throwing out seeds and we see which ones grow and take off, and planting that gospel. And I start the book with the story of my father, who a guy drove up to where he was at in a bar he was at and preached the gospel to him. And had that not happened, I probably wouldn't be talking to you today. Like, this is still fruit from 50 years ago paying off through our family, through the podcast, movies, everything that we've been able to do. And it changed their lives, my mom and dad's life. They stayed together, the marriage stayed together, um, and it changed the kid's life. And so you just never know what the gospel can do when it gets into someone's life. It could change their lives, their marriage, which it did in ours, their kids, grandkids to come. So every time I'm talking to someone, I always try to think of that in the back of my mind. Like, you never know where this could go 20 years from now, the seed that you're planting.
And I think it boils down to loving one another, right? Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's why it is, so much in the Bible too. That was the greatest, love one another. We are to look different. And when
Yeah.
somebody is going to search for somebody who may have the answers or some of the answers about God and Jesus and what the gospel is,
Right.
9 times out of 10, they're going to want somebody that's lovable, that's approachable, right? Like,
That goes back to caring about people, right? So you got
yeah.
to care about people to even know. So many stories today you'll see in the news where somebody's like dying on a sidewalk and people are just walking by. They really just don't care. And I think when it even more practical than that in our own lives, we're kind of like, oh God, do I want to get into their mess because I've got enough of my own, and we really do. And we're just kind of like, again, send them to somebody, send them to the pastor. Maybe they can help them. Because we feel like, oh, I've worked my life out to where it's smooth and I'm doing what I want to do. And so when someone else comes in, it's like, but it's almost like when you care about them like you would your children, where my kids would constantly come in. I'm going, oh no, you've wrecked this whole day. But I love them, right? And I'm going to serve them, and I'm going to do that because they're my children. I think when we collectively, as a group and as a church, really go out after there, because a guy can give a sermon in a pulpit at a church building, but if there's 1,000 people in there, if the 1,000 go out and share their faith, it's got to be way more effective, because they'll be able to get places that other people can never get, especially inside homes and talking to people. So, yeah, just a way, the Bible says always be prepared to give an answer for the hope that you have. And so the answers, or the question is, how exactly do you get prepared? And so try to knock down that whole intimidating nature of the Bible. I generally use about 7 passages with someone when I'm talking to them. So, can you learn 7 things? I think so.
Yeah.
I think
It's a
so.
great tool. It's
Yeah, I
really a
think
great,
so. I
great
think you
tool
can,
just to help.
because you pick a Bible up and it looks big and it's intimidating. And so I think a lot of us just go, oh no, I can't, but I can show them a few things in the scriptures that can get them started. And it's just a method. It's not the only way. The methods will be different. The message is always the same. The message is Jesus, and that's the same. But the different methods that we can use are, and people use them all over the world. They've been using them. Obviously, things work because we're still talking about it 2,000 years later, halfway across the planet, from where it happened at.
I heard Louis Giglio one time say, which and it just reminded me that I still want to do this, of maybe have some resources on hand, like write them down. Like, if someone
Mm-hmm.
is, questioning the authority of the Bible, like,
Mm-hmm.
there's just some great sermons that'll, speaks exactly on that, or a book
Yeah.
or whatever, and just have some resources handy. So when those questions do pop up, or when people do have questions that you think, oh, I'm not going to be able to answer that. And if we can have a resource that we go right to and say, oh, you know what, I don't have the answer, but why don't you watch this, or go see,
Right.
look into this, or read this chapter of the Bible.
Yeah,
So
that's not a bad idea. Sometimes these conversations are 20 minutes, sometimes they're 2 hours, sometimes I've had conversations for 20 years with people, That's how long it's been. And I'm still there, and we still work through. We still try to get to where they can, because it's not always the same. The Apostle Paul said he said, "Pray for me that the mystery of the gospel can come out of my mouth more clearly." It's like Paul knew the gospel better than anyone. Why was he still praying that the mystery? Because I think this is more like art. It's not science. Like I can tell two people the same exact thing. One may go like, "I'm in," and one may say, "Nope, I don't want to have any of it." So I think Paul was always thinking like, how do I, what is the thing to say? Because we see that Jesus and then Peter and Paul, they always use different approaches and different things that they would say, how they would start conversations with people and where they would start with, because people are different. People, our past are different. So um, I may tell one person, hey, you could be part of a church and you could have community and a family, a spiritual family. And one guy may say, that's exactly what I've been looking for. The next person goes, oh, never. I hate the idea of that. I was hurt by someone at a church. And so it's like, oh, no, that's not going to work for them. But it works for the
Well,
other
that's
person.
why God uses all sorts of different cultures and flavors and churches and
Yeah.
denominations. Like that's what I'm growing, or that's what I'm learning as I grow spiritually. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I see it. Like it is the job of everybody,
Yeah, and
We
it's just
can't get past
specifically I can
it
just
all.
sit and I care
Yeah.
about somebody. I'm an ambassador for Jesus, so I'm gonna. Sometimes I take on the role as like Jesus is the great counselor. Like you can be a counselor to people and counsel them through. Sometimes like a physician, where it's like, here's a problem, here's a solution. Do you want to try to do what it takes to get that done? Almost like a doctor would be. A doctor knows a lot of information, but at the point of a bad diagnosis, he's pretty much just going to say, you got a big problem, let's see if we can fix it. And if they jump in, later on you're going to learn a lot about that, what you have, what condition you have. And so I see that as like Christianity, where once this book is for kind of that front lines, and then once they get in, there's all kind of aspects of discipleship, and they're going to learn all about the different nuances of the New Testament, the Old Testament. But this is that right at the beginning, right at the beginning, and starting that conversation because I'm telling you, people are being recruited and converted every day for another side of living that is not positive and not godly. And people are losing their children. We're losing schools and all kind of, things to just a bad way of living, and a worldly way of living. So it's happening out there. And I think we need to wake up and start doing some converting and teaching and preaching to people.
And I'll end on this. I think if anyone is eager, maybe they're scared, but they're wanting to have more gospel conversations. I've always been amazed for when you ask God to put people in your path. If we make that a priority of saying, God, put someone in my path today, or who is it that you want me to
Yeah.
share with? I mean, it's pretty remarkable what can happen when you seek that and ask for
Right.
that.
It really is. And they're probably already there. You just probably, or you're not looking at it. You're not looking the right way, because you'd be amazed. You just be like, oh, yeah. And I've missed a lot of opportunities as well. And so I'm that early. Yeah. And I look back on, oh, man, I think that guy. But
But
I know
God is
that
sovereign.
I want
He
to be
takes care of
prepared,
that.
right? I want to be prepared to when I have those conversations, to at least be able to know what to say that to the best of my ability. And I think this book can help.
Well, what a pleasure again to get some time with you. Safe travels. We're going to be praying for you again. That you see, you didn't even know your schedule's so busy. You don't even know what city you're going to next.
I'll be in well, yeah, before I'm in Tampa, I know I'm in a couple of more cities. So I know I'm in Huntsville
Oh,
tomorrow. So I'm
well,
trying to take it one trip at a time.
hey, that's all right. I understand. Well, congratulations on everything. Just again, so thankful for what you and your family are allowing God to do through you guys. And we're excited about what's to come later because, again, I know this is nowhere near over for you and the family and all the stuff you have coming out. So I look forward to talking again soon.
Great talking to you. See you.